Hey, what's up? This is Scott with Level Up Tutorials, and today I'm going to be starting a new series on web developer lifestyle. Now, I really wanted to start this series for a long time. I've been planning a lot of videos, I've been planning a lot of topics to cover what life is like day to day as a web developer and some of these issues that we all face and maybe don't realize that everyone faces. And at some point, I realized that this series at some point would just be my opinions and ideas about these things. And that's not as effective as it could be. So what I decided to do is I decided to bring in my lovely wife, Dr. Courtney Tolinski.
Hi, guys.
Who's a doctor of educational psychology with a background of clinical and school psychology. So she has a lot of experience giving therapy and just working with people for all sorts of different issues.
Yeah.
And I feel like bringing her into this and getting her thoughts on all of these things that we all experience is going to bring so much more value than me talking about my experience, because it's actually like science-based.
Right.
Instead of, just personal experience-based, right?
Right. Well, I hope that's the effect.
Yeah. So again, if there's like the Q&A, if there's topics you want to see addressed, we already have lots planned, but if there's topics you want to see addressed within these developer lifestyle videos about maybe issues that you face or coworkers face or anything like that, leave a comment in the video. You can shoot me an email if it's personal and you want to remain anonymous or anything like that. And we will cover as much as possible, because there's a lot here and there's a lot of problems that we all face as developers.
Or as people.
People, professionals, right? It's all the same here.
Yeah. So
I know you wanted to give a quick disclaimer.
Yeah, and you'll probably see this in every video, but just as a reminder, any advice that I give, it's evidence-based, but it's coming from a very general perspective. So if you're having trouble with excessive stress, anxiety, depression, if you suspect that you really just need to talk to someone, then I would recommend that you see a licensed professional.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like sometimes people don't want to make that jump, but it's easy. From even just being around you, I know how easy it is to go to therapy, and people should really more people should do it and feel like less of a stigma about it if there is one.
Yeah, that's awesome that you feel that way.
Well, I definitely
my
do.
Job.
Yeah, no, you should. Yeah, so absolutely. So
yeah, that's great.
The topic we wanted to talk about today is what some people have referred to as dev rage, but it could also be thought about as like work frustration, because let's face it, developing anything, websites, apps, designing anything, whatever, it can be this tedious process. And I'm reminded of a situation even like a couple days ago. I'm not going to name this person by name to embarrass them, but they were just saying, I'm really having a hard time with this. And I said, just give me the code, I'll look at it. Because I know that you can just bang your head against something. And I believe he was looking at this thing for like hours and just like, why isn't this working? There's no error. We all do this. And I look at it and sure enough, as a fresh pair of eyes, it's not because I'm me or something. Anybody could have seen this. He used, when he was importing a script into his HTML, he used SCR instead of SRC. Nothing, no spell checker in the world is going to find that.
There's frustrating.
You're not going to notice that.
No.
And you just thrown, 2-3 hours of your life out the door on this thing that you felt like was a totally different issue. And that right there is so rage inducing you could, flip a table over.
I've seen you get to that point once or twice.
Yeah, I've definitely been at some point in my life I was a chair flipper. I've had coworkers react really negatively to really frustrating situations, and at the end of the day, it's not going to make a great professional impact. And
it doesn't help you alleviate that anxiety or frustration. And maybe it's like a temporary fix, maybe cathartic at that time, but in the grand scheme of things, it's not beneficial.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the first thing I want to talk about is this pull to solve a problem. Like anybody who's probably had an issue with your code, you make a change. you get an error, you make a change, you maybe get the same error or different error, you make a change, and you feel like this process has only happened like 10 times, right? But each time you make a change and it doesn't fix the problem, you get more frustrated and it builds. But it also, at the same time, as a problem solver, which we all are,
right,
it pulls you in more. You want to solve it more. So what's the best way that when you feel that pull to like be able to handle the stress of that, not only that pull that pulls you back in? What are your thoughts on being able to get out of that?
Yeah, well, I think the problem starts even before you get to that point, right? Because that's the point to where things can go one of two ways, right? Maybe even more so, to where it can go off to the left and you're off in the deep end, right? Mm-hmm. Where you just sort of lose control and that frustration explodes. Or you're kind of at that point where you could de-escalate, right? Mm-hmm. And go back to sort of a calmer state. But what I would say is to really, to get to know yourself mm-hmm. and what triggers you have that kind of suggest you might be frustrated, right? And I say that because everyone's triggers are different, right? We don't all experience frustration or anxiety in the same way physiologically or internally, mm-hmm. right? It's different for everybody. So for me, I know my thoughts just really kind of get jumbled and are like just not very coherent. They're not clear. Mm-hmm. I start to like panic a little bit. I can feel like my heart increasing. Mm-hmm. And I feel really tense. Like my body just feels really tense. Would you say you feel differently when you get frustrated?
For me, when I'm getting like that, I get tunnel vision, and like if anything is impeding in that tunnel vision, like it makes me want to lash out at it. Like, let's say I'm like really tunneled into trying to fix this issue, and then the dog starts barking. I'm going mm-hmm. to yell at the dog, and I don't mean to be yelling at the dog because it's not the dog's fault that she heard something outside and started barking. But it's a reaction that happens because I really I maybe get more tightly wound, right?
Right. So if you could back up a little bit, where's the point where you would say you'd start to notice that your frustration is increasing? Because it has to be before you have extreme tunnel vision.
Sure. I would say if I'm trying to fix an issue and the reason for the issue isn't clear. So maybe I think I've solved the issue and then I've refreshed and maybe the error message isn't correct or it's not telling me the right thing.
Right.
At that point, I think is when I'm starting to get frustrated because I suddenly have lost control of the situation.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's frustrating when you're not in control and like you said, you're a problem solver and you don't have a clear solution.
Right.
So I would say at that point is really the clear indicator that you need to stop what you're doing and just take a little break, right? Whether that's get off your chair, right? Or out of your office and just grabbing a drink of water, just really quick, 30 seconds. It really helps to just kind of clear your mind and give you that physical break from the source of frustration. Mm-hmm. I always tell people, and I think people have a hard time buying into this, but it's so effective, is just taking really great deep breaths, right? Being a really good deep breather is really beneficial. So being able to inhale, and I would say count for at least 4 seconds, right? Okay. And then hold it for at least 4, and then exhaling really slowly. So breathe in through your nose, out through your mouth, right? Taking a set of like 10 deep breaths. Okay. Really beneficial.
And you know what? I've always even had a problem deep breathing. Like it doesn't feel comfortable to me to take, really? Like I almost feel like I'm short of breath. And oddly enough, I was listening to like a Tim Ferriss podcast. Yeah. And he had somebody who was like a diving champion or something talking about deep breathing. Oh yeah, they would really know. Yeah. And they said a great technique, if of course it's not comfortable for you to deep breathe, is to breathe through your teeth.
Oh.
Because you get less oxygen in. So if you close your mouth and breathe through your teeth, you get less oxygen, or you get less air in at once. So it makes you have to breathe slower.
Yeah, and that's the big thing too with deep breathing is you really have to do controlled exhalations.
Yeah.
So if that's effective for that, then I could see it.
Yeah.
And some people have like sinus problems or issues with that. That hits a little close to home. So sometimes you're right. It might not be comfortable to breathe through your nose. But whatever way you can find to just take some deep breaths. And, like we're saying, it doesn't have to take that long. It can just be like a 30-second break. But it makes all the difference when you're at that point, right? And which way do you go? Do you go off the deep end and you're frustrated and things explode? Right? Mm-hmm. Or are you able to calm back down and look at it from a fresher perspective?
So you're saying we get to a point, we have an error, we think we have it. We write the code, we hit save or whatever, we refresh, error doesn't go away. You can feel it start to rise a little bit. At that point, maybe stand up, go get a drink of water.
Yes.
Refill your mug of water. Take some deep breaths at that point, and that can like bring you back down. But let's say we sit back down, we try a few more things, and it keeps elevating.
Okay. If you find that it keeps elevating, then I would either repeat that pattern again and take a longer break. So maybe you need like a 5 to 10 minute walk outside, get some fresh air, get some movement. Do something that is physical and again gets you out of that space, that mental and physical space. But if you find that it's still frustrating and just really difficult to get a hold of, then I would say stop yourself and switch what you're doing, right? Because I know you have 1,000 things going on that you could be working on, but you have a tendency to focus on that error like there's nothing else, right? That's on your agenda, right? So I think the hardest thing is having self-control and not feeling like a failure, because you will come back to it. And a lot of times when your brain isn't consciously thinking about something, it's still kind of unconsciously processing that, right? So sometimes you can even come up with a solution or think of an alternative way to come about it just by doing something different, right? So stopping yourself and just switching your activity and saying, you know what, I'm going to come back to this later because right now I'm not clear-headed and I'm not thinking through everything I could be.
Yeah. And that actually, it hits close to home for me because I'm always of the opinion that I can solve whatever issue that's there. I can solve this, you know, and
which is helpful in some aspects, right? That perseverance. But when it comes to like frustration management, that's only going to do you worse.
I know. And she always tells me to stop working on something, even if it's like 11 o'clock and I'm banging my head against something. She'd go to sleep. I said, I'm not going to be able to go to sleep until I fix this. I'm not going to be able to stop until I fix this.
Yeah.
And every single time I don't listen to her and I try to fix it, I don't fix it. Or I stay up all night and it's like 1 a.m. before I fix it. And then I just feel like garbage the next day. Or I listen and I go to bed and I do fall asleep. And the next day, like 9 a.m., 9:30 or whatever, first thing I do, the thing fixes itself somehow. I feel like every single time she tells me to go to sleep, it's not going, it's the problem's going to be there or whatever, and you'll have a better approach. The first thing I want to say is no, like I have this.
Digging in those heels.
But it works. It works like every single time, and I hate admitting it because it always feels so wrong to stop when you're in this rut here.
Yeah, I understand that.
But it definitely works. And if you're at work and you can't just, like she said, you can't just stop working on something. If you're building, structural aspects of it, go to CSS, work on something creative and fun. Work on something just totally different that's not going to get you into these bugs or whatever like that. I mean, and the going outside for a walk thing is a huge thing.
Yeah.
Coworker and co-founder of Level Up Tutorials, Ben and I used to work at an agency, and we would work on stuff, and there'd be not every day, but some days, and tap on my desk because I have my headphones on and just say, "Hey, I need a walk," or I would say, "Hey, let's go take a walk," because you could just feel it coming on that you were so frustrated that you couldn't work on anything. We would go for a walk and talk about, maybe even web development stuff, but not the issue or whatever. We'd come back inside. We'd both have a fresh fresh brain, and it would just feel totally different.
Yeah, and you have to remember, you're working on a computer, right? So not only are you doing a lot of like mental work with your brain in terms of like, figuring out how to code. I'm probably not using the right language, but it's a lot of like mental effort thinking about what you're doing, but it's also exhausting on your brain to process all that visual information, and it's kind of straining and taxing.
Yeah.
Just being on a computer screen all day long. So I think your brain's kind of working double duty.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's a lot, and probably stress is amplified because of that.
Yeah. Okay, so we now have, before the point of breaking, we have past the point of being frustrated, but like, the chair hasn't flipped yet. Let's say we're at the other end.
Okay.
You've been unable to pull yourself away.
Yeah.
You flipped your chair over. You've punched a wall. You slammed you slammed the door. Whatever you do, that's in like a reaction to this aggression that you have to get out. How do you cool it down at that point where you are already at the Hulk smash point?
Yeah, well, I'd say the first thing is to take some alone time and sort of process what's happened, because I think a lot of times after you release that energy, then you're able to think a little bit more clearly about what happened and how you responded, and how those two reactions kind of weren't coherent, right, or correlated. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I think kind of telling your spouse or whoever's around, I need some time, right? I'm feeling really frustrated. I just need to take some time, be by myself, calm down, and do something fun that's totally unrelated to coding, right? Whether that's, hopefully not playing video games, because again,
whoa.
Well, I'm talking about I'm coming from the screen perspective of the strain, but I know sometimes for you, video games.
It depends on the game. If I'm playing like Mario Maker on expert and I'm dying every single level, it's frustrating.
Not a good choice.
Yeah, it's not going to calm me down.
Okay, so some light video games.
If you're playing something that's fun and light and maybe non-competitive or something like that, then there's some good meditative.
But I would say tap more into your other interests. So whether that's exercising is a huge one. It's a good serotonin boost, and it's good for relieving that stress.
Yeah.
So exercising, going for a run, working out, whatever, playing basketball outside, whatever is comfortable for you. Or just, engaging in a hobby, whether you're an artist, you like to cook, you do yoga, you like reading, whatever that is. Just have some me time if that's, allotted in your schedule. But I think it's better to take that time than it is to kind of reimmerse yourself in your life. Right? Yeah. Because I know sometimes when you get frustrated about something, it affects me. I can feel that energy and I react to it.
Yeah, the negative energy goes both ways. It raises everybody's nerves and everything. Yeah.
And then your problem just escalates even further because now you brought other people into it.
Now
and we're not happy.
An angry spouse.
Right.
Angry dogs or yeah.
So I would say always take a break as much as you can and try to make that an alone break if possible.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, what helps you when you're at that point?
For me, when I'm at my most frustrated, I think that is the point where it becomes immediately obvious that I need to slow things down.
Yeah.
So for me, it's almost like, how did it get that far where I was like that frustrated? And to be honest, it hasn't gotten to that point in a little while now. I'm more likely to stay up all night working on something than I am to like really rage out. There was a point maybe like 4 years ago where she could hear my like chair flipping or something. Yeah,
and I think that comes with the experience too, right? You've really learned a lot about yourself, I think, through your career.
Yeah, absolutely. And that for me, like if it's really getting difficult, the going for a walk is the number one biggest thing for me that helps things.
Yeah, and I think for a lot of people too.
Gets me away from my computer, which I have a hard time doing. Get like separation anxiety from my computer.
No, I believe it.
Please.
So keep it when you go on your walk. Keep your phone at home too.
Oh,
Take nothing.
Yeah, that's actually the good part about having 2 dogs is I can't like check my phone the whole time I'm walking, or else I probably wouldn't look up.
Yeah,
and that would just make things worse. Yeah.
No phone, no smartwatch, nothing.
Yeah. How about that?
Take a break. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So I mean, I think we covered like a lot of the spectrum, right? We covered before, middle, after. Yeah, any sort of other tips you might say for when that frustration is rising, or do you think we did a good job covering?
Well, I would say I have 2 other tips.
Awesome.
The first is to take as many like regularly scheduled breaks as you possibly can.
Okay.
So I've been trying to implement this in my own life, and it's certainly not easy. But finding some time each day where you can take like 10 minutes and just meditate, right? Or take a deep breath, take a series of deep breaths, or just kind of like relax and slow down a little bit. I think at the start of your day is a great time. Around lunchtime is excellent. And then maybe around like 3 or so when you're starting to get in that like afternoon slump, that's a good time. And maybe when you're home too. I usually recommend to clients like 3 to 5 times a day if you're feeling really anxious or stressed, just to take time for yourself, schedule it, and really relax, right? So I have an app called Calm that I really like.
Calm?
Yeah, and it's a free app. Some of the aspects aren't free. You have to purchase.
Okay.
But they have like guided and unguided meditations that are free, as well as body scanning. So I use that, and it's really helpful. It has a nice visual imagery on the back.
I feel like I've used it. Yeah. I don't know. I'm not positive, but I have a picture in my brain.
Yeah, I think you can change the background, change the noises, but the person who does the guided voices, their voice is really tolerable, and that's key with the meditation.
Definitely, yeah, I'm sure.
Headspace, I really love. I subscribed to that for a year. So there's a bunch of them out there, but I would say taking scheduled breaks, whatever feels comfortable for you and is relaxing, is really important.
Awesome.
And then the other tip I would say is to use positive self-talk, and I'm using like psychology terms here, but reminding yourself when you come up with an error or something that feels like you can't fix it, taking a step back and looking at what is reality, right? So in your mind, when you feel that way, what are you saying to yourself about this error?
Like just that I'm not able to solve it, or I'm not able to have control over the situation or the code, or what?
Right. So I don't have control. I can't solve this. It's really self-defeating, and it gives you a very negative perspective and sends you into that more aggressive and maladaptive behavior, right? Yeah. So if you're looking at it from a calm, realistic perspective, what's the truth about that error?
Just that I haven't discovered what it means yet.
Yeah, so it's solvable, right? But you're just not there yet.
Yeah.
Right? You haven't quite figured it out. Right. Doesn't mean you're not competent. Doesn't mean that you're a failure, right?
Yeah.
What it means is that it's going to take more time than other issues that you've come across, right? But you will solve it eventually. When you remind yourself of that, I'm frustrated now, but I will get this eventually, that's really key, right? Because it shifts your whole thought process and really how you feel about your work and what you're doing. And
as a developer note with this point, if it's something stupid, like a couple letters, or you forgot a semicolon or a bracket or something, everybody does it. And the best way to eliminate things like that is to use code linters and hinters and stuff in your text editor. What those does is it finds like either like JavaScript stylistic things or potential problems in your code. And it lets you know that they're there and says, hey, you used the wrong type of quote. Did you mean to use this type of quote? Or like, hey, this is missing a bracket here. And that can save you some of those headaches, so they never even happen and turn into these frustrations where you feel like it's a problem.
So you're like editing your work as you're going.
Yeah, exactly. It's almost like a spell checker. Right, yeah. So that's exactly, So use linters and hinters for that aspect of things.
That's awesome,
Yeah. And there's even some style guide. They're called the JSCS, which is like it's more of like a code style thing rather than you're doing it wrong. It's more of like you're not adhering to this style. And if you follow these particular style ones, then your code always looks a certain way. And it's like way easier to see if something looks wrong, something looks off. Yeah. Okay. So definitely, I think those are some really, really key points. I mean, you will solve it. Everything's going to be solvable. And if let's say you bang your head on it, you can always get a second pair of eyes on it.
Yeah, I think that's a key point too.
It is. It's somebody else. If somebody else notices a mistake in your code, it's not that you couldn't do it or you weren't good enough to do it and they were. It's just that they're seeing it with completely different eyes than you are. Yeah.
And likely, if you could take a break from it for like a week or even a couple of days, you would see that error too.
Exactly. Yeah. Cool. So I think this was really, really successful.
I hope so. Let me know if there's other questions you have about this dev rage.
Yeah.
I have lots of relaxation strategies, but these are just a few of the biggies.
Yeah. So if you want to know any more about this, we can definitely go more in depth on any of these topics. Like I said, if there's other like lifestyle or dev life, whatever questions that you have for us, we're going to be going like really deep into a lot of these things. So, please let us know whatever you want to see more from this. But yeah, so I think that was super, super helpful.
Awesome.
I know every time I have issues, Courtney is amazing at coming up with the right sort of solution for me. So not everybody has a Dr. Courtney here. So hopefully that this series can be that Dr. Courtney for everybody. Yeah. Cool. So as always, this is Scott
and Courtney.
Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.
Bye.
Bye.